now they have the microphone. I just want to share an anecdote with you. Doing ReBoot, you know, being a voice actor, as many as you can attest, no one knows that you're this character, and it's very popular. And I was doing movies in the States and back and forth, and I'd flown back to Vancouver to do a film, and the movie was with Joe Mantegna, a movie called Underworld, not the one about the vampires and all that. It was a mob movie. So I'm sitting in a limousine set with Joe Mantegna for about a week, 6 days. And we're talking about LA and back and forth, and I said, I do voiceover, I'm back here doing a cartoon, and I do a cartoon in LA, and back and forth. And he said, do you know Andrea Romano? And I said, yes, I do, actually. She is the woman who cast the show that I'm doing in Vancouver called ReBoot. And he pauses and looks at me and says, ReBoot? What do you do on ReBoot? And I say, I do the character of Bob. And he says, Bob? Bob on ReBoot? And I said, yes. Are you familiar with it? He said, Michael, I have a 6-year-old daughter. She's autistic. And for weeks, she's been saying, ReBoot, ReBoot, ReBoot. So finally, one morning, I come down and see what she's pointing at, and it's ReBoot. And then he looks at me, and he says, wait till I tell my wife I met Bob from ReBoot. So, you know, you never know where the show is going to take you or whatever. And one other before I don't have the microphone. Many of you know the line when Bob says something and he says, I don't think so. Do you know that? Yeah. It was in the original script, and when I originally read it, it reminded me of a song from LL Cool J in the 80s called Going Back to Cali. And in the song he says, going back to Cali, going back to Cali. No, I don't think so. So about 2 months ago, I happened to be at an event in Los Angeles, and I meet LL Cool J. And I said to him, I just want to tell you this, I have no idea if you know this, I did this cartoon in Canada years ago called ReBoot, and I had an expression where I said, I don't think so, and it was a reference to your song, Going Back to Cali. And he looked at me, he's like, licked his lips as he does. Yeah, I like that. All right. So, inspiration comes from the strangest places.
Well done. Thank God. No, as I was saying, Ian Corlett. We love Michael Benyaer and always will and always have, because he's a fabulous guy. Well, I like him because he's my friend, and we all like him. Anyway, but Ian here, I really like Ian, and contrary to popular belief, Ian is very well respected and well loved in this community, except by some people.
By Mom?
Oh yeah, except by Mom.
Well, back in the early, what would have been, 89, Gary and Ian and myself were in a cartoon show on NBC called Captain N, the Game. Oh my God!
Remember that show?
You know, people suffer, remember?
Yeah.
Dr. Wiley,
Oh.
King Hippo, and I played the Eggplant Wizard.
Dr. Wiley.
I can do Dr. Wiley.
Except it makes me wheeze.
I'm not decent! Come on, Eggplant, let's get to it!
I didn't do it. It was all his fault. Mother Green.
How many people out here know that all of Hack and Slash's dialogue was improvised?
I do.
Do it now!
We're on this show.
Oh yeah, what about Buttons? Remember Buttons? That was the dog, right? Oh yeah. Okay. I gotta tell you, Scott, I gotta confess that I have, for all these years, thought I was the blue guy. And I always thought the blue guy was named Hack.
You are the guy is Slash.
And I'm Slash. So,
You're blue.
and I'm blue, but so I got half of it right. And so I'm only a half-wit. Right, okay. Well, anyway, so Scott and I would go into the studio, and we'd get the script, and we'd read it through the proper way of the script, and then we'd just riff on it. And it would go like this. Heck, I don't want to push the button.
I don't want to push the button either, because I don't have a frickin' microphone.
You think for ReBoot there would be 2 mics?
You would think. There is. There's another mic sitting right there.
And it's being unused.
So they would let us go. We would do the very staid and official scripted version. And they go, okay, you guys just go. Boom.
I don't want to push the button.
You want to push a button.
I don't want to push the
Why
button.
did you want to push a button last time?
Because every time I put the button, something bad happens.
There's nothing bad to me.
Oh, Michael Benyaer's gonna kill us.
Mom always liked you best.
This is kind of like me in every single session too. I just kind of sat there with my jaw on the floor. ReBoot was my very first cartoon, and I had done TV before. And Garry actually said to me one day, I'm doing this cartoon and they're looking for a grown-up Andrea, and I think that you would have a good voice. Of course, I got very excited, and I said, I've never done this, I have no idea how to do this. He's like, I can get you in, he's like, come over, I'll teach you. And I remember going and putting something down on a cassette tape. Sitting in your basement.
Didn't know it's happening.
Sitting, come here, little girl.
You're more about the show all the time, aren't you? No.
Yeah.
That's how I got the job.
And they're still close as together. One of Hollywood's most successful guys.
Successful love stories.
No, I never forget that. I'll speak without the mic. Can you hear me back there? Oh, yeah. You can? Oh, of course you can, you liar! Anyway, yeah, I remember that with Sharon, and I listened to Sharon's voice, and she had this great voice that was perfect for Andrea. And I'm going, you've got to come and read for this. Oh, I don't know. Come on. So we went down to my basement.
And I sucked.
No?
No. I was really bad at voice work.
Just to compound that, but she only sucked for a very short while.
He's just feeling jealous.
Nothing a little blue pill couldn't take care of.
Garry was a very big help, and I did eventually get the job, and if it wasn't for Mr. Donovan, I don't know how long I would have lasted either. Everybody there was so patient and so kind, and I was so intimidated by everybody and scared, and you still scare me. Ian, these guys are so talented, there's so much talent. And Ian was always so official and so quiet. He was always on his, I don't even think there was Crackberry then, but he was on his cell phone and doing this and doing that. And he wasn't paying attention, he'd sit down and he'd read. And suddenly like 8 great voices would come out of him, and I was just floored by it. I was floored by it. And I always ended up next to you. Whenever I did a cartoon with you, I always ended up sitting next to you.
It was a tip.
And Garry was like the kind of actor who like was waving his arms around everywhere and like spewing sandwiches while he was eating and diving over the mic and just full on into it. And Scott is just like the most hyper, wonderful. Anyway, they're great people, and it was just I did my own voice. I had a great time. I learned so much, and I'm really happy to have been a part of that show, and that's why I'm here.
And didn't she do a great job?
Yeah.
I can never look at seashells the same way.
Just to build on what she was just saying, there's only a handful of shows that I've done of the hundreds or thousands, maybe hundreds of series, but thousands of episodes that have had this kind of impact, and it's really, and I don't usually say this kind of stuff, as you guys know, it's really quite special to be a part of something that has had this kind of impact and has this kind of fan base for so long. So much of what we do feels very disposable. Like you do it and it goes on TV, and then in a year or two, no one knows, no one even cares. And this is pretty neat, and you guys are the reason why we keep doing this. So thanks very much.
It's also a testament to mainframe as well, yeah.
Probably the two most enduring shows in my experience traveling around is, you know, even at an anime con, I can be anywhere in the world and people are like, you know, oh my god, and somebody goes, you were on Beast Wars? Beast Wars, he's in Canada. Right, W World is Canada. Of course we can blow things up bigger than the Americans, but join Ratty and Gumgolly Gorilla and all their chums tonight at the Beast. Right, you know, but that was 12 years ago. There's
Those two shows were the
reissue anniversary
babies.
stuff for ReBoot, and it's the stuff. It's kind of the legacy stuff